Okay, so okay, so this is like these are the things which we use in our daily life. Okay, maybe YouTube and then WhatsApp, Gmail, then I think each and everything. Okay, so I think each and every applications, maybe in your mobile system or maybe in your laptop or in your computer. So everywhere there is maybe a slide or a fully authenticated AI behind AI or machine learning kind of a thing. Okay, so uh, okay, so for a today session, so these are like agenda for today's session. First, I discuss about machine learning. What is machine learning? A brief idea about this buzzword. Then what makes machine learning so special? Okay, so the main concept which is called a pattern recognition, which makes it like so special. Then a machine learning task means what are the different kinds of a learning. Then machine learning life cycle means end-to-end process of building any kind of a machine learning model. Then model deployment using Streamlit app. So we are going to deploy our model. So this is like a hands-on session for maybe a 20 to 25 minutes. Then at last a code walkthrough. Okay, so after showing you all this in a theoretical perspective, then I will show you the code in which you are able to see okay how the systems are building by using this techniques which I am going to discuss in a life cycle, and then we are going to deploy the model as well. Okay. If I talk about machine learning or if I talk about the artificial intelligence, so AI is nothing but it's a kind of a capability. So everything, so like this Netflix or a YouTube or maybe wherever you see a kind of application where you are trying to make some kind of a prediction, you are trying to make some kind of a decision, that a human-like intelligence capability where we are trying to make machines to uh, perform the activities using a human-like intelligence, that that things are called artificial intelligence. Okay, and to build this kind of an application, to build a kind of application like a Netflix or maybe auto correction, to build this kind of application, we need some kind of an algorithm, some kind of a learning algorithm, and that learning algorithm is nothing but a machine learning, or you can say a deep learning, but here we are only discussing about the machine learning. So machine learning is nothing but a subset of an artificial intelligence which allow computers to automatically learn and improve from the experiences. Okay, so experiences means nothing but a data. Okay, so we are trying to teach some kind of things to the machine on the basis of some past data, some past experiences, and then we are trying to make this kind of a system where we are able to make some prediction, we are able to make some kind of a decision. Okay, so this is what we are trying to build by using this learning concept, learning algorithm. Okay, so by using a machine learning, we can computer can learn our data to discover the pattern. So patterns means nothing but a kind of a rule. So we are trying to discover the pattern. We are trying to find the patterns from the data. Okay, and this is what we are going to discuss. This is what the agenda of today's session. Okay, so this pattern kind of a thing. Okay, so pattern means what? So machine in a machine learning, it is a kind of teaching of computers to learn patterns from the data. Okay, so patterns means what? Patterns means a kind of a rule, kind of like something on which we are able to make a decision, we are able to make a prediction for the future. Okay, so if I give you a very simple example, so like in our childhood, teachers like uses to teach us. Okay, so they are using to teach us numbers. Okay, so numbers are nothing but 1 2 3 4 5 6, and like then they teach us like this something is called even numbers. So even numbers are nothing but 2 4 6 8, and then something is called an odd number, which is 1 3 5 7 9, and then something is called an alphabet like A B C D E. So after teaching these things, so teacher are trying to give some kind of a question. Okay, so maybe if they give a question like to complete the so try to predict the next three numbers. Okay, and they give us a pattern like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So definitely with the help of our experience, what a teacher actually teaches, with the help of our learning experience, we are able to predict that the next three numbers is nothing but 12, 14, and 16. Okay, so this is what a pattern actually means. Okay, so pattern means nothing but a kind of a rule. So we are trying to teach patterns, we are trying to teach rules to the computer, and based on that pattern, based on that rule, computers are machines are able to we are able to make a decision, we are able to make a prediction on the future data set. Okay, so for the future, we are trying to make some kind of a decision, we are trying to make some kind of a prediction. Okay, so machine learning is a modern software development technique that enables computer to solve problems by using examples of real world data. So definitely we are trying to solve real world examples. And here also, so in today's session, I will show you by building a kind of a model which can solve a real world problems by using a real world data. Okay, and in a true machine learning, so you can heard a lot of definitions of machine learning, but if you want to understand this thing, that what actually machine learning do, so this is the actual things which like a machine learning kind of a thing is do. Okay, so it is trying to identify, it is trying to find, it is trying to extract the underlying patterns in the data, and then we are trying to teach the computers without being explicitly programmed. Okay, so this is like a concept of a machine learning. This is the true idea behind the machine learning. Now, I'm going to take one more example, one more beautiful example, so that this pattern recognition kind of a thing is clear to you. So this is a example of a curious child. So suppose there is a child of just maybe a 5 to 6 years of old, and in his house, so he's playing in the house, and he saw like a candle. So he sees a candle, and he goes near to that candle, and out of the curiosity, normally children are like very curious. So out of the curiosity, he tries to waggle his hand over that candle, and then he stick his hand over a candle, and just after he stick his hand over the candle, he get hurt, he get burned, and he just remove his hand, and then after removing his hand from there, he makes a pattern in his mind that red and bright means pain. So if anything which is maybe red and bright in color, it definitely giving me some kind of a pain. Now after some days, maybe a week, he's again playing in the kitchen, and now this time he sees a stove top, and again he goes near to that stove top, and out of the curiosity, again he tries to waggle his hand over that stove top, but now he sees the color. So after so now when he sees the color, and he remembered that no, this red and bright means pain, and he remove his hand from there, and he actually save him by again getting hurt. So this is so because of the machine learning, because of concept of a machine learning, because of the concept of pattern recognition, he's able to save himself. Okay, so he's able to save himself this time without like help of anyone, just because of his own experience, just because of his own pattern. He have a pattern in his mind, he's able to save himself. So this is what actually machine learning do. So this is the actual concept behind the machine learning. Okay, so we are trying to learn from the patterns, we are trying to extract some kind of a pattern, some kind of a rule on the behalf of our data. Okay, so we are trying to find out rules, we are trying to find out the patterns between the data, and then based on the same pattern, we are trying to make a prediction or a decision for the future. This is all this is actual concept behind machine learning. So fine. Now, based on the same concept, based on the same pattern recognition concept, if I try to try to differentiate like a kind of a learning, so there are basically two kinds of a learning. So one is a supervised learning, another one is unsupervised learning. Now, what is the difference between these two kind of a learning? So in a supervised learning, we have a training sample, means in our so we have a data set and we have input variables, means we have a training samples, and along with the input variables, along with the features, we have a output associated with it, means we have a labels associated with it. Okay, so what I mean by a feature then, and what I mean by an output variable. So yes, in a later stage, where you are able to understand this thing, but if I try to explain you this thing with an example, so suppose I can, so suppose I want to make a kind of a model, and that model helps me in predicting whether the student is going to pass or whether the student is going to fail in an examination. Okay, so I have in output variable, I am having a pass or fail, and then in like in my feature column, maybe I am having an attendance report. I am having first like in some report card, and maybe I'm having a age, I'm having a number of hours students studying. So based on these inputs, I'm trying to predict, I want to predict whether the student is going to pass or fail in a final examination. Okay, so in this kind of a data set, I'm having an input variable, I'm having a input variable, I'm having a features, and features are what? Features are number of hours he's studying, then attendance report, then the percentage in a first exam or maybe in-sems, and then age. Okay, and based on these inputs, I am trying to predict whether the person or the student is going to pass or fail. So I am having a label also. I am having a output variable also. Okay, so whenever you are having input data and you have a label, you have an output variable associated with that, that kind of a learning is called a supervised learning. Now in unsupervised learning, so suppose you don't have, so in unsupervised learning you don't have any labels. Okay, so in unsupervised learning you only have an input variables, means you only have a features, and you don't have an output variable associated with it, means you don't have a labels associated with this. So you don't have a label associated with this in this data set. So you only have an input variable, and based on the input variable itself, you are trying to find out some underlying patterns. You are trying to make some kind of rules on the basis of input variable itself. You don't have any kind of output variable, or you don't have any kind of a label. In a supervised learning, so we have a two kind of a task, means we have a two kind of a problem statement. So the first one is a regression. So regression means what? Whenever we are trying to predict maybe some numbers. Okay, so whenever we are trying to predict some numbers, or more specifically, I can say whenever we are trying to predict maybe any continuous random variable. Okay, so if I give you the example, so suppose in a same case, maybe if you have a age of a student, you have a gender of a student, and you have a weight of the student, and now you need to find out the height of the student. Okay, so you need to predict some number. Okay, so that is called a regression task. Okay, so whenever we are trying to predict any number, maybe so suppose if India is batting, and you need to make a model which may try to predict what may be the inning after the first score, what may be the score after the innings end. So you need to you want to predict the score, or maybe you want to predict like stock market price. So whenever you need to predict any a number, any a continuous random variable, so that is called a regression task. It means in your label you have a numbers to predict. You don't, okay, so that is called a regression task. So now in a similar way, suppose you need to predict maybe some class, okay, or maybe some category, or maybe any category. So that is called a classification task, or more specifically, you can say whenever you need to predict a discrete random variable. So that is called a classification task. Means suppose you have a data of any patient and you need to check whether the person is COVID positive or maybe he's COVID negative. So this is like a two classes. One is COVID positive, another is COVID negative. So that is called a classification task. And maybe if you want to make a so this is a binary classification, means because you have two classes to classify. So suppose if you want to make a multi-class classification, so maybe in a features you have a lot of symptoms. Okay, so you have a lot of symptoms of any person, and then you want to check what disease he's having. So maybe he's having a pneumonia, maybe he's having a flu, maybe he's having maybe a fever or cold. So you have like a 3 or 4 classes to classify. So that is called a multi-class classification. Okay, so whenever you need to predict any number, so that is called regression task. And whenever you need to predict any class or any category, so that is called a classification task. Okay, I think this point is clear. Now, if I talk about unsupervised learning, so again in unsupervised learning also I have two kind of a task. One is clustering. So based on the underlying patterns, or based on the pattern which we identify from the inputs, we are trying to make a group. Okay, so we are trying to make a group, or we are trying to make a cluster of my data set. Okay, so suppose if I give you one example. So as a child, so teacher are teaching us, okay, so this is an apple. Okay, so if I tries to maybe identify an apple, so I can identify with the color and the shape. Okay, so apple is like a round in shape and red in color. Likewise, mango is like yellow in color and spherical in shape. Okay, so suppose you have one bucket, and in that bucket you have like 3 categories of fruits, maybe oranges, mangoes, and apple. And now your job is to make a cluster. Your job is to group the similar kind of a thing in 3 different buckets. Okay, so now as such, so as your job is to make 3 different buckets, and then group all like all the fruits which are like a same kind of a which share same kind of a property. So we need to like put all the apples in one bucket, then all the apples in all the oranges in a second bucket, and then all the mangoes in the third bucket. So based on their property, based on their property, we can make this kind of a cluster, we can make this kind of a group. So that is what we call a clustering. Okay, and definitely it has like a very use application in a field like people use this kind of application to like segment their best customers. Okay, so any kind of a market or any kind of like a startup, so people use this kind of a technique to segment their good customers, or maybe they are trying to segment their poor customers. So that we are trying to check, okay, so yes, this customer is like very valuable for me, so I can give some maybe some good offer to him, so that he's not going to leave us. Okay, so this kind of this kind of a thing we are doing by using this clustering concept. Now, the second kind of a task is like association rule learning. Then what happens inside association rule learning? So if I give you a very good example, so in a supermarket or maybe in any kind of a market, I think you heard this thing. The whole market is going on like one simple concept that is called FMCG. So FMCG stands for fastest moving consumer goods. So we try to give a kind of a recommendation, we try to give a kind of an idea to maybe salesperson or maybe a marketing manager, that you can keep like these 4 things together. Okay, so I can ask him to keep like maybe egg, milk, bread, and butter together. and in that way you can gain more sale and your profit will be increased. So based on my learning experience, based on data, I am able to draw this kind of a rule. I am able to generate this kind of a pattern for the like a sales manager, and as a data scientist I can recommend him. So, okay, so if you like put your things in this manner in which I am suggesting you, you can get more profit, you can gain like more sales in within this year. So this is what we call a association rule mining. Okay, and so yes, this is what happened in a supervised learning and in unsupervised learning. So in both kind of a learning, we are trying to make some kind of a decision. We are trying to make like some kind of a rule, but in a different way and based on a different kind of a data set. Okay. So fine. Now, by keeping this thing in our mind, by keeping this pattern recognition things in our mind, now we are able to make one machine learning model. Okay, so now we have an idea and we have a very clear concept which help us to make one complete model. Now I am going to share you the complete 6 stages of a machine learning life cycle, and these 6 stages are like fundamental everywhere. Okay, so these 6 stages are like a fundamental foundation. Okay, so maybe based on your data set you can use maybe a different techniques in inside this stages, but the stages are going to same everywhere. Okay, the very first stage is problem definition, and or you can say you need to understand the problem. Okay, so that is the very first stage. Then the second stage is data collection. Definitely for making any kind of a machine learning model, you need a data. Without data, you can't able to make any kind of a machine learning or deep learning model. Then third is exploratory data analysis. Okay, so we talk about this stage in a later okay, when we come on to this slide. Then a feature engineering and preparation, a data preparation. Then algorithm selection, and then the last stage is model building and evaluation. Okay, so after building the model, after using all these stages, when we finally build the model, then our main job is to evaluate the model. So before deploying into the market, before use that a particular model for the production, we need to like check whether my model is good or not, whether it is okay, whether I can deploy this model or not. Okay. So let's start, guys. So the very first thing. So for today's session, I'm going to make one kind of a machine learning model, which are able to automatic loan prediction system, which are able to tell us. Okay, so I picked this project, and the task is to protect whether the loan will be approved or not on the basis of the details provided by the customers. Okay, so customers give their input that what is their gender, what is maybe their age, what is their annual income, and then what is their credit history. And then based on those inputs, my model will able to predict whether he's able to whether he's eligible for the loan or not. Okay, or maybe I can say whether his application can be approved or can be rejected. Okay, so this is my problem statement, and this is my problem statement regarding this for today's session. So I want to automate the loan eligibility process based on the customer details provided while filling online application form. Okay, and based on the details, we need to decide whether or not their loan should be approved or maybe rejected. So fine, guys. So yes, for making any kind of a machine learning model, so the very first thing, you need to understand the problem statement. Okay, so you need to understand the problem statement, and then we can proceed. Now, after understanding the problem statement, the very first thing which we need to have is our data. Okay, so how we are able to get the data, or how we are able to get the relevant or specific data for the specific model, and what are the different sources, or what are the different ways of collecting a relevant data. So now if I if I told you, so if I tell you that, so there are like different ways or different methods of collecting the data. So the very first thing, you can like collect the data by conducting a survey. So you can like conduct online and offline survey to create like collect the data. So suppose if you want to collect a data for the similar problem, so you can like make a Google form, and then you can spread that form to so many places, and then you are able to collect the data. Okay, and based on that data, you can create your model, and maybe you can also like conduct an offline survey. Okay, so like people are conducting a survey before in every time. So at least in India, so every time people are trying to make a survey, and then before the actual result of the election, they are trying to make they are trying to announce the exit polls. Okay, and that exit polls, it definitely on the behalf of some survey, maybe that exit poll may be accurate or maybe non-accurate, but that exit poll on the behalf of some kind of a survey, maybe online or offline survey, but that is based on some kind of a survey. Now, the second way is from the relevant website. So this is, I think, in my experience, this is like the best way of collecting the data, or you can say a most relevant data, because if I'm able to like collect a data from some authenticate website, so that data is like maybe very useful, and that data give me a lot of information for building the model. So this is like a very good way of collecting the data, best way of collecting the data. But what happens is like there are only few websites where you don't have any restriction, but there are a lot of websites where you can find a restriction. So in this way, you may uh, you may need to like purchase the data. So you need to expand something, or maybe you need to like purchase the data from the official website by making some kind of a contact. Or if there is no restriction, so it's very easy. Then you can, by using the web mining or web scraping technique, you can scrap the relevant data for your use, and then you can build a model. Now, the third and very simple way of collecting the data is from any open source platform like a Kaggle, UCI, GitHub, and a Google, or maybe a Papers with Code. So these are like all the open source platforms or open source repositories from where we can very easily collect maybe some amount of data. So I think for this particular project also, I collect the data from Kaggle itself. Okay, so Kaggle is like a learning platform for all the data scientists, and you can. So most of the time, you can get a more relevant data from the Kaggle itself. Okay, so these are like this is a like very this is the simplest way of collecting the data, simplest method of collecting the data. Now, the last thing, okay, so if you're not getting a data from anywhere, so based on your own knowledge, based on your experience, you can create a data by yourself. Okay, so suppose if I want to make a spam detection machine. Okay, so maybe if I want to make a spam detection machine, which are able to predict which mail is spam and which mail is not spam. So based on my experience, based on my knowledge, I can select some keywords like housing, or maybe loan, or maybe lucky. So based on these keywords, I can make a kind of a model, and we are able to I can make like a data. So this kind of keywords belong to a spam mail, and then some kinds of keywords are belong to a not spam mail, and then I can make my own spam detection machine based on my own data set. Okay, so yes, you can create by yourself also. Now, the second next step is exploratory data analysis. So this is like a very important step. So stage 3 and stage 4 is the most important step in any machine learning lifecycle. Now, in exploratory data analysis, we are trying to explore the data, we are trying to analysis the data, we are trying to make some kind of an analysis on the data with the help of like a graphs, with the help of like some kind of a plottings, and it will help us to it will give you a lot of insights. It will give you a lot of information, and based on that information, it's become very easier for us to build a perfect model. Okay, and I think this particular graph and this particular things are like very good, so that suppose if you have some non-technical client, so that non-technical client can understand your thing with a graph. Okay, so he can understand your thing with a graph. With a graph he can understand the things very easily, because you can't expect from your client that he's also having the same mathematical or maybe a depth knowledge what you are having. So you can make him understand with the help of graphs, or maybe with the help of plots, and in that way it becomes easier for you also, and it becomes easier for the client also. And you both are able to analyze the thing. Okay, so you are able to analyze your data. So this step is like very important for you also, so that you are able to analyze a lot of things. You are able to extract a lot of insights and lot of information from the data itself, and then based on that insights, based on that observation, you are now happy to proceed for the next step for the model building. And one more, so there are like a different kind of expert analysis technique. So one is like you can call univariate analysis, a bivariate analysis, a multivariate analysis. So it means nothing but univariate means when you are trying to make an analysis on a single variable. Then when you are trying to make an analysis on two variables together, then suppose you are trying to make analysis on maybe 3 4 variables together. So these are all different kind of analysis. And one very important analysis is you can try to you can try to find the relation between the data. Okay, so how one feature or how one input variable is related to another. Okay, so this kind of a relation is very helpful to you. Okay, so here if you can check, so a temperature and a hot chocolate. So there are three kind of relation: a positive relation, and then a no relation, and the negative relation. So this relation is very helpful to you, and it will tell us, okay, so which feature is putting more impact on the target variable, and which feature is putting no impact on the target variable. And on the basis of that observation, you can like drop some of the features. Okay, so you can drop some of the features which are not putting any impact on your target variable. Okay, so like in this problem statement, suppose your loan amount is a kind of maybe a feature which put more impact on the whether your loan should be approved or not. Now if you try to make a relationship, you are trying to check a relationship of loan amount with some any other variable. So you can check, okay, so salary is putting any impact on not, or maybe any other variable is putting any impact on the loan amount or not. Okay, and based on that observation, you are able to select the most important feature. Okay, so suppose if some feature which is not putting any kind of impact on the target variable, so you can definitely leave that features. You can definitely leave that features, and then you can make your model by selecting the good features only, which are trying to put some kind of impact on the target variable. Okay, so fine. These are all the things you can do in the exploratory data analysis. Now, if I talk about feature engineering, so feature engineering again. So as I told you that stage 3 and stage 4 are the most important stage. So in a feature engineering, we are trying to transform the raw data, means the data which is available to you is you can't say that data is like a perfect data. Okay, so the data which is available to you is kind of like an imperfect data that may have a lot of flaws in your data, and then you need to make that data set as a perfect one, and at least a compatible for the learning process. Okay, so you need to make your data set at least a compatible for the learning process. So for that you need to use some feature engineering techniques which help you to make your data like a perfect one, or you can say a compatible for the for the learning process. Okay. Now, if I talk about some of the steps, some of the techniques of the feature engineering. So the very first technique is removing irrelevant features, which means we are trying to remove those features which are not relevant at all. Okay, which are not going to impact, which are not going to put any impact on the target variable, or you know, you can understand, okay, so this feature is not going to help me for making any kind of a predictive model. Okay, so you can drop that feature straight away. Okay, so you can drop those kind of a features straight away from your data set. Fine. So you can remove the irrelevant feature. Then the second is handling missing values. Okay, so there is a case that in your data set you can have a lot of missing values. Okay, or maybe some missing values. Okay, so so maybe if you are having a few missing values, or maybe if you are having large missing values, in both the cases, you need to handle those missing values. So maybe you can drop the column, okay, or you can drop those missing values. Or the second way, you can use some statistical technique. You can use some statistical way to handle those missing values. Like suppose most of the time for the numerical data. Okay, so suppose if you have a in your there is a data missing in a numerical column. So at that place, you can handle those missing values with the mean. So you can fill those missing values with a mean or a median. And maybe if you are having missing values in a categorical column in a class, okay, where you have a class, so you can fill the missing values with a mode. Okay, so why mean and median and a mode? So I think you all know about a mean, median, and mode. So mean is nothing but the average value, a central value. Okay, so the central value of any kind of a data is a mean, and then a mode is that value which is occurring most number of the time. Okay, so in any data set, which the number which is occurring frequently, or which is occurring which occur more number of a time, that is called a mode. Okay, so whenever you have a missing value in a numerical column, so you can fill those missing value with a like a mean. And whenever you have a maybe a missing value in a categorical column, so you can fill those missing value with a mode. Or maybe if you don't want to fill those missing values, so you can straight away drop a missing values also. Okay, so yes, you need to handle in one way or another, but you need to handle this like a problem of a missing values. Now, if I talk about a data transformation, so data transformation means what? We need to scale our data set. Okay, so we need to scale our data set onto the similar scale. Okay, so maybe suppose if you have one column of maybe a salary, so definitely in a salary column you have a value maybe like uh, 10,000 or maybe a 15,000, then maybe 1 lakh. Okay, suppose annual salary if I'm talking about. So 10,000, 15,000, 1 lakh, 2 lakh. So you have this kind of a data. Maybe so every data is more than 10,000. Now, so, I have one more input variable. Let's say maybe uh, uh, loan amount, so term. Okay, so for how many month I want this loan. Okay, so that value definitely will be in month. Okay, so maybe that is in month. So that is maybe around okay, that may be 20, 40, or maybe 100, or maybe 200, but that is in under the scale of 100. Okay, and your salary column is under this is having a scale of 10,000 and then a lakh. Okay, so in both the columns, so both the columns are not into the same scale. Okay, now so data transformation means we need to transform my like a data so that all the columns are come into the same scale. Okay, so that is called a normalized data. So here with the picture you are able to understand. So suppose this is your original data, and then you are trying to normalize this thing. Okay, so you are trying to normalize this thing. This is called a normalization. Okay, so we are trying to normalize the data set, and with the normalized data, building a model is like a very easy thing. Okay, so it help you to make a kind of a model. And suppose if you not having a normalized data, so it like a very like a tedious job for any data scientist to build a kind of a model. Now the last technique, or yeah, but yeah, definitely you have a lot of feature engineering technique, but here we are discussing only 4. So the last feature engineering technique is nothing but a if we are trying handling a categorical variable. Okay, so every machine learning algorithm is having every machine learning algorithm so every machine learning algorithm having some kind of a mathematical equation. Okay, so like in a logistic regression, we have 1 upon 1 plus e to the power minus x. Then we have y equals to mx plus c. So each and every machine learning algorithm having some kind of a mathematical equation, and definitely we can't pass any class value or any like a categorical value on through that a mathematical equation. So we can't pass like a male or maybe a female through that a mathematical equation. So that is why we need to convert all the categorical data. Maybe if we are having a categorical variable, so we need to convert all the categorical variables into a numerical one. Okay, so these are like 4 feature engineering techniques which are very important before building any kind of a model. Now, after like a feature engineering, it's time to so after all the pre-processing, it's time to build our it's time to prepare the data. Okay, so what I mean by preparation, so here you can check. Okay, so like you need to split your data set into 2 forms. So first is feature and the target. Okay, so you need to store this feature into an x and then target variable into an y, maybe so any variable. So you can store this features into a variable called s, and then x, and then you need to store this target variable into another variable for say y. Okay, in this way you are able to like split your data set into a 2 form, and then again you need to split this particular data set into a training and testing. Okay, so training and testing means what? Okay, so observation, feature, target variable is clear now. Training data. So why I am trying to split the data set into a training and testing part. So on the training data, so I'm trying to split on the basis of based on some percentage. So maybe I took like 80% data for the training purpose, and then I took 20% data for the testing purpose. So before deployment, I need to like test my model, whether my model is perform accurately or not, whether what is the performance of my model. So whether the performance is good or not, I need to test like those things. Okay, so inside the training data, okay, so on the 80% of the data, I need to like train my machine learning algorithm. So we are trying to train our machine learning algorithm on the 80% of the data, and then we are trying to check the performance on the 20% of the data. That is called the testing data. Okay, so in a data preparation, first we're trying to split between the feature and the target variable, and then again we are trying to split into the training and testing set. Okay. After data preparation, we need to select the best algorithm for our model. So the very first thing which we need to check whether the data set is whether the problem statement is falls into the criteria of supervised learning, or whether it is falls into the criteria of unsupervised learning. Then we are trying to check whether it falls into, okay, so I think this particular problem statement falls into the criteria of supervised learning, because we need to predict whether the loan should be approved or not. And if I check, so this falls under the criteria of classification task. Okay, we need to classify between 2 classes, yes or no. So now it's time to select the best algorithm for this problem statement. So we have a lot of classification algorithms like a KNN, regression, decision tree, random forest, etc. And then I'm going to choose a decision tree. And why I'm choosing a decision tree for for making a predictive model? Because decision tree is like a highly interpretable model. Okay, what I mean by highly interpretable, because like most of the machine learning algorithm or most of the supervised learning algorithm is maybe you can say so they are like a black box kind of a thing. Okay, so we are not able to understand what is going on inside this algorithm. But in a decision tree, we are able to interpret that yes, this is what going on inside this algorithm. And the second thing, second important like a concept which helped me to select this particular algorithm is the decision tree is able to generalize better in comparison to other learning algorithm or other basic machine learning algorithm. Decision tree is able to generalize better. Okay. Now, I took an example and explain you. So suppose there is one problem statement, and based on one data set, based on like a weather. Okay, so based on the weather condition, we need to we need to choose. Okay, so whether this weather is preferred for playing a tennis or not. Okay, so based on the weather condition, I need to take a decision whether I am able to play a tennis or not. Okay, so fine. Maybe maybe we are having three or four type of a thing which we need to check. Maybe outlook, humidity, windy, and temperature. And then so suppose I took outlook as my root node. So you can check. So this outlook is nothing but my root node, and then so if the outlook is overcast, okay, so straight away if the outlook is overcast, I am going to play no matter what. But if the outlook is overcast, I am going to play the tennis. Then if the outlook is sunny, then I need to check the humidity. If humidity is lesser than 75, then I am going to play. Okay, that is fine for me, I am going to play. But humidity is greater than 75, then I am not able to play. In a similar way, if so if there is a rain, along with the rain, if there is a wind, so if there is wind, so I'm not able to play. But if there is no wind, so I'm able to play the tennis. Okay, so in this way you are able to interpret your model. Okay, so you are able to interpret the model, you are able to interpret your decision, what decision you are making, you are able to interpret this. Okay, and so this is a kind so I think this is nothing but I think every one of you able to understand this thing. Okay, so root node and then the child node and the leaf node. So root node is nothing but the node from where we are started, and then this is a decision node is nothing, you can also call this as a child node. And then leaf node is like where we are able to make a decision, where decision are finalized, that is called a root leaf node. Okay, so fine. You can check. Okay, so unlike the black box type of a learning algorithm, this decision tree is like easier to understand. It is, and it is highly interpretable. It is easier to understand. It is easier to interpret. Okay, and a second way of understanding the decision tree. So I think you all are aware about the conditional statement in a programming language. So you can understand this thing in terms of a programming language also. Okay, so if humidity is greater than, so if in the form of if elif and else statement also, you are able to interpret this thing, you are able to understand this thing. Okay, so if outlook is if outlook equals to overcast, so yes, I'm going to play the tennis. Okay, so fine. I think a decision tree model is I think every one of you able to understand the decision tree model in a layman way. I'm not going to give you the geometric intuition. In that way, it will go for very long, because then I need to use the mathematical term and I need to make you understand the mathematical concept. But yes, without a geometric intuition, this is what a decision tree. Now, after selecting the best algorithm, I need to fit my training data on the learning algorithm, and then I need to build a model. And after building the model, I need to evaluate the model. Okay, so the training set, the work of the training set is over. Now I need to take I need to consider the test data, and on the basis of test data, I need to check the performance. Okay, so whether the model performance is good or whether the performance is bad. Okay, so again, there are different kind of a performance metric, like for the regression task. So suppose suppose if you are trying to predict some numbers, so you can check the mean square error or root mean square error, and this mean square error and root mean square error is nothing but you are trying to find out the difference between the true value, means a true number, the actual number, and the predicted number. So the number which you have predicted, so number which your model has predicted, and the number which which the actual value inside your test data set. So you are trying to find out the difference between these two values, and then so you want this difference should be a minimum, because if the difference is minimum, so this is nothing but an error. So if the difference is minimum, then you can say yes, my model performance is good, and yes, I am able to deploy my model. In a similar way, for the classification task, you have something called an accuracy score and a confusion matrix. Okay, so score means what? Accuracy scores means nothing but a number of total correct prediction divided by a total number of value inside a test data. Okay, so I think it's a very simple concept. I think suppose in an examination, if I got like a 430 out of 500, so how I'm able to check what is my percentage? So I'm able to check my percentage with this calculation, 430 upon 500 into 100. So this is so here the same concept. Okay, so accuracy score means nothing, a total number of correct prediction, so your prediction, and then divided by a total number of observation into 100. Okay, and the confusion matrix is the same thing. Okay, so from the confusion matrix also you are able to understand this accuracy score. So suppose if I explain you the confusion matrix, so this is a confusion matrix. This is the diagram of confusion matrix. So on one side you have an actual label, means your actual test data, and then on the other side you have a predicted label. Now you need to check, so my actual label is true and my predicted label is also true. So it means what? This is called true positive. Okay, so I'm making a correct prediction. Now my actual label is true but my predicted label is false, so this is called false negative. Okay, so I'm making a false prediction. Now my actual label is false and I'm making a I'm predicting it as false, sorry, true. So this is also a false prediction, and this is called false positive. Now my actual label is false and my predicted label is also false, so this is called true negative. Okay, means this is also a correct prediction. So suppose if you want to find out a confusion score, so confusion matrix score, so someone asks you the confusion matrix score, so what you need to do, you need to like add these two numbers, true positive plus true negative, and then you need to divide this true positive plus true negative with all. Okay, so true positive plus false negative plus false positive plus true negative. Okay, it means you want a more number in like this section and this section. Okay. For like a best model, for the good model, you want more number in this section, in this section. You want a fewer number in this section, in this section. Okay, so this is what like a whole pipeline. Okay, so you have a training data and then you fit your training data on your learning algorithm. Then after fitting, you build a model. Okay, and then after making a model, you are trying to make a prediction on the test data, which is unseen data. And then you are able to collect your prediction in something which is called Y hat. Okay, so Y means the actual label and then Y hat means the predicted label. Okay, and this is what you need to find out. So if suppose if someone asks you in a term of what is the error or what is the loss, so loss means nothing but a loss function scores how far off a prediction is from the desired target output. Okay, so how far away you are from your target output, you need to find out. So Y minus Y hat, this is like a simple error function or simple loss function. Fine, guys. So I think our machine learning life cycle is completed. So we are able to understand the life cycle of a machine learning model. So if you need to build any machine learning model based on any kind of a problem statement, so you need to follow the same life cycle. You need to follow the same steps. Maybe sometimes you need to use a 4 feature engineering techniques. Maybe you need to use just 2 feature engineering techniques. Maybe you need to use maybe a 6 or 7 feature engineering techniques. So in that way, or maybe sometimes you can use a decision tree, or maybe you can choose any other learning algorithm. So yes, these things can be changed based on the kind of a data set, but the concept, but the foundation is going to same for any kind of a machine learning model. Now, if I talk about the Streamlit a little bit, so this is like a very good app. Okay, so Streamlit is like a wonderful app. This is an amazing library or a tool which is able to turn your data script into a web application very quickly. Okay, so if we try to deploy our model, if we try to deploy our if you want to deploy our model, means if you want to make a web application, so maybe we need to use some other like a programming language, or maybe we need to learn some other kind of a front end script or technique like HTML, CSS, or maybe JavaScript. But in a Streamlit, you need not to worry about those things. Okay, so the best thing about Streamlit is what everything you do is in the Python itself. Okay, so using Streamlit, we can create a front end also in a Python script itself. We need not to create our front end script with the help of HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. Okay, so with the help of Streamlit, we are able to create like a front end with a Python script itself. Okay, we need not to have knowledge of any other like a programming language or any other technical background. You need not to use have you need not to have this kind of a technical background. Okay, so this is like a beautiful app. Yes, by using this app, I'm able to deploy my models. So this is all about theoretical part. With this, our theoretical part is over. Now, if I jump into the coding section, so I need to like share my screen, and so I can show you the code. Okay, so okay, so I'm going to build the same model which I discussed with you. 1 second. Okay, so we are so this is something I think so there is some company who wants us, means who wants us like from a data scientist or maybe from a machine learning engineer to make this kind of a model or make a system for them, so that they are able to automate the loan eligibility process, okay, based on the details provided by the customer. Now I need to import some libraries, some important libraries, and these are nothing but a basic libraries. Okay, so pandas is for our data manipulation and data analysis, or maybe for creating this data frame. Then second thing is a NumPy. So that stands for a numerical Python. So for making any kind of calculation, any kind of a scientific calculation or numerical calculation, we can use a NumPy. Then for making a graphs and plot, okay, so I need to use Matplotlib and Seaborn. Okay, so I am able to load my data set, and then I can like check my what. Okay, so some significance of my data set. So I have like maybe 13 columns along with one target variable. So I'm having a 12 feature and then one target variable. So loan ID is nothing but a unique loan ID for all the customers. Then a gender, male or female, okay, or whether married is whether the applicant is married or not. Then education, self-employed, so whether the person is graduated or not, and then a property area, So the customer, so it tries to check from which area customer belonging to. So they maybe belongs to urban area, semi-urban area, or maybe rural area. And then a loan amount, how much amount you want, and then applicant income. Okay, so based on this selected feature, I need to create this kind of a system where with the help of an input, my model is able to predict whether that person is eligible for loan or not. Okay, now with the help of train.info, I am able to get some information about the data set. So I think I have 614 rows, which means I have 614 training examples. Then I'm having 13 columns. Then my data set contains all the three kinds of a data type. So some is like in float, and then some in integers, and some are in objects. Okay, and then you are able to check one more very beautiful thing, that you have 601 non-null values, which means out of 614, if you are having 601 non-null values, it means you have 13 null values, means in this data set you have a missing values. Okay, so here also you have some missing values. Then independent column also you have some missing values. Then education column also you have some missing no, not in education column, but in a self-employed column, you again have some missing values. Okay, so you are able to check with the help of train.info, you are able to check, okay, so where you are having a missing values, in which column you are having a missing values. Now, I think this loan ID column is not relevant at all. And you can also like understand that this is not going to give any kind of information. Okay, so this loan ID is not going to give me any kind of information through which I am able to check the eligibility of a customer. So I am going to drop this column. Fine. Then if I okay, so now it's time to explore the data set, and it's time to make some analysis on the data set. So the very first thing which I want to explore, so what is the percentage of target variable class distribution? Means there are two classes in a loan status, yes or no, and I want to check what is the distribution of class. Okay, so how many percentage of people, how many percentage of a customer falls into the criteria of yes, and how many percentage of customer falls into the criteria of no. Means the whatever the data I am having in that data set, how many percentage of applicants are applications are approved, and how many percentage of applications are rejected. Okay, so if I check that percentage, and this is also like falls into the criteria of univariate analysis. So here I am able to check that 68.7% applications are approved, and only 31.3 applications are rejected, which means a 2/3 of the total applicants have granted loan. Okay, and every time I'm trying to like make write down my observations so that it will help me to bring to make a model. Now the very first kind of analysis, univariate analysis. So in a univariate analysis, I can try to analyze a single features, means a single variables at one time. So I have maybe I have a gender column, then a married column, then dependents column, education column, self-employed column, and then property area column. So I can analyze these columns separately. So if I try to make an observation from this column, so I can make an observation that there are more number of males in comparison to females. Okay, so yes, you are able to you are able to like find out that number of male customers are greater in comparison to female, and this number is 3 times greater. Okay, so yes, I'm able, I write this observation also. Now more number of like customers are married. Okay, so more number of customers are married, and then a more number of customers are graduated also in terms of education, and then a more number of applicants are from the semi-urban area. So these are all kind of observation which I am able to make with the help of this analysis, with the help of exploratory data analysis. If I want to analyze two features together, which bivariate analysis. So now you are able to observe. So I think some observations are very obvious, like you have a more number of males, which is like 3 times greater than the female. So definitely males are having a higher chances of that they are granted they have granted like a loan, or their application was granted, because already you have like a more number of males in your data set. Now, if I check for the merit column, so again the same thing. More number of like merit customers. So merit customers are having a higher chances of getting a loan. Okay. Then if I check the credit history, so this column is very important. Okay, so credit history column is very important. Actually, it is trying to check whether you are having a good credit history or not. Means you have any kind of a debt, or you don't have any kind of a debt. Okay, so this feature is like very important for any bank or maybe any company to give a loan. Okay, so if you are having like a lot of debt already, so a bank or any company is denied to give you the loan. Okay, so this thing is really important. So yes, I think so. If you are having like any kind of a doubtful debit history or credit history, so here you can check. Okay, so I think here you can check that you have like a very a low chance, or just like a 0% chance, or maybe just a 1 or 2% chance that your application can be approved. Okay. So fine, and then again the same thing. Applicants who are not like a self-employed has higher chance of getting loan than maybe more applicants from the semi-urban area are also likely to granted loans. Now it's time to make like a correlation matrix so that I can observe some more things. So here you can make your observation, because you just have maybe a 3 or 4 numerical columns. So now if when I draw this correlation matrix, so how I will let you know that how you are able to find out the relationship. Okay, so here if you see that so here is a applicant income. So what is the relationship between like applicant income with applicant income? So it is definitely going to be 1, because this is the same variable. Now, if I check the applicant income with a applicant income, so it gives me the negative relation, minus 0.12. So it tries to give me the negative relation, means there is no relationship between applicant income and co-applicant income. Now, if I try to check applicant income and a loan amount, so I am having like a positive relation, and that positive relation value is high. Okay, so it is 0.57, which means there is a direct relationship, or there is a positive relationship between a loan amount and a applicant income. Okay, so definitely based your income is very important for if you are trying for any loan. So your income is an important factor over there. And if you try to like check the co-applicant income, so here also co-applicant income is also making a positive relationship with the loan amount. But yes, not like it is not very you can say okay, so this is not like a very important feature. But yes, this is also a kind of you can say important feature, because it so there are like a positive relation. Okay, so it is not like there is a negative relation or no relation. It is having a positive relation. So you can say that this particular column or this particular feature is also important for making a prediction. Now comes on to the feature engineering part. So first I need to check the null values. So I think you are able to see that we are having like a null values, a 13, then 3, then 15, then a 32, then 22, then 14, then 50. So I am having okay, so we are not having like a lot of null values, but we are having maybe a few null values in each column. Okay, except maybe 4 or 5 columns, every column having some kind of a null values. So now it's time to fill those null values. So I'm trying to fill the categorical columns means like a credit history, then a self-employed, married, and gender. So these are all categorical columns. So I can try to fill this categorical column with the mode. Okay, so here you can check. So I'm trying to fill the numeric categorical column with the mode, and then I'm trying to fill the numerical column with the mean. So now if I check, so I don't have any like a null values. Okay, now proceed for a categorical variable. So I have like some categorical variables. So I think you all can check over here itself. So if I try to write train.head, so I have some columns where I am having a categorical values. Okay, so like in a gender, then married, then education, then self-employed. So and then property area. So in 5 columns, I am having and then loan status also, because so you need to convert this also. Okay. Okay, so this is a target variable, but you need to convert this also. Okay, so so in 6 column, I am having like a categories classes. So what I can do is, so I can replace those categorical feature or categorical value with a numerical one. Okay, so in place of y, I can write 1. In place of n, I can write 0. I can replace male with 1, female with 0. I can replace yes with 1, no with 0. Then I can again replace yes with 1 and no with 0. And suppose if you are having maybe more than 2 or 3 classes, so you can use this technique also. So this is called a label encoder. So what I mean by label encoder means it tries to give you it try to give you a numerical value based on this labels. Okay, so based on this label, so I think in this labels you have 1 0. So starting from 0, so how many classes you have, so it tries to give you maybe labels. Okay, so suppose here in maybe so in a property area. Okay, so you have 3 classes: urban, rural, and semi-urban. So here what label encoder do, so it can it makes urban as 0, rural as 1, and semi-urban as 2. Okay, so in this way it tries to encode the categorical features. Okay, now if I try to check train.head, so yes, finally we have all the features with the numerical values. Fine, so each features are converted into a numerical values. Now it easy for me to prepare the data set and then build a model. Okay, so now it's time to prepare the data set. So first I need to split between feature and target variable. So I took only a relevant features like a gender, married, self-employed, and I know that applicant income, co-applicant income, and this credit history. So I know this, at least these 3 features are very important to predict eligibility. And then in so I took this all these columns, and then in y I took a loan status. Okay, because loan status is my target variable. Now it's time to split the data set into training and testing set. So I took test size as 0.2, means 80% data. On the 80% data I'm going to train my model, and then on the 20% data I'm going to test my like a result. Okay, I'm going to evaluate my model on the remaining 20%. Now, with the help of scikit-learn, so sklearn is again a very beautiful machine learning library. So with the help of sklearn, we can import a decision tree classifier. So what we have discussed earlier with the on the decision tree. So the same thing will going to happen with the help of this library. Okay, so I'm able to import this decision tree classifier, and from the same scikit-learn, I'm able to import accuracy score and confusion matrix. Okay, so I make a object of this decision tree classifier class, and maybe it have so many parameters. Okay, so I just took 2 parameters into the consideration, and then I just fit my training data over this classifier. Now, if I want to make a prediction, so I think you all know that you can make a prediction on a you want to make a prediction on the test data. So you need to make a prediction on the X test, because X test contains inputs, means of features. Okay, and features, and that features you never seen those features. Okay, so that is kind of a unseen data. Okay, now if I check the accuracy score, means I want to find a score between the predicted and the actual. So this is a predicted level and this is the actual level. So now if I try to find out like a score, so it gives me 0.79, which means a 79.67% accuracy, which means it is very near to 80%. So my model is able to give me an accuracy of 80%. So I can claim that, I can state that yes, the performance of my model is good enough to deploy. Okay, because I'm getting 80% of an accuracy. And suppose if I want to check the confusion matrix, so out of like 123 data, I'm able to predict 98 data correctly. Okay, so I'm able to predict 98 data correctly, and 25 like incorrect prediction is also there. Now, if you want to interpret this thing, okay, so if you want to interpret your decision tree model, so yes, I can interpret this model. Okay, so if I check, if I take like more depth, so you are able to go into the more depth. Okay, here. Okay, so okay, so yes, as I said, that credit history is very important. Okay, so true, false, and then this way. So yes, fine. I'm able to interpret the model, and you are able to check. Okay, so if the loan amount is lesser than equals to this, then it tries to check the co-applicant amount income, and then it tries to make a prediction. So here, I think somewhere it tries to make a prediction, and somewhere it tries to, okay, because I took a maximum depth as 3 only. Okay, if I increase this depth and if I try to increase this depth also, so I'm able to like go into the more depth. Okay, now if I check the confusion matrix, so yes, 86 and 12 is there, and 24. So this is a true positive and true negative, and this is nothing but I think false negative and false positive. Now I need to save my model. Okay, so I need to save my model. So for saving a model, you need to like convert your model into some kind of a format. So maybe in H5 format, in maybe in pickle format. So here I am converting my model into a pickle format, and then I'm able to write save my model. Now I need to install the Streamlit app. Okay, so need to install this Streamlit app, and we also need to install this PyNgrok application. So this PyNgrok tool is nothing but it helps us to writing those like a front end into the Python script itself. Okay, so because of this PyNgrok, we are able to write that Python script into this sorry front end part with the in this Python script itself. Okay, and this is the script which I am talking about. So here we are able to like read our model. So I am able to read my model. I am able to open my model, and then we make a function for a prediction, for making a prediction. So in a function, we first need to pass the input. Okay, so whatever the input I am having, we need to pass the complete input, and then here I am trying to make a prediction. Okay, so whether prediction is rejected, so whether the application is approved or rejected, and then here we are trying to make my front end. Okay, so suppose if you want to make it more attractive, and if you have some kind of a knowledge, so yes, you can make it more attractive as well. Okay, and fine. So this is like my app.py, and then I'm able to deploy this thing on the local host. And now if I try to make a prediction, so let me check, okay, whether my loan is going to be approved or not. So yes, I'm okay. So gender is fine. Then status, marital status is also fine. Then employment status is also fine. Then suppose if I try to uh, okay, so monthly income is also fine. Then maybe a co applicant monthly income is also fine. Now, if I ask for the loan of maybe 5 lakh and I don't have any unclear debts, so now if I try to predict, so yes, my loan is going to be approved. Okay, and someone, okay, so anyone from you want to check whether your loan application is going to approve or not, so you can give me your input and I can check whether your loan is approved or not. Okay, so this is all from my side. I think we are able to complete the whole part which I took for today. And now it's time for your questions and my answers. So, yes, sir. Amish, sir.
Yes, sir.
So,
Thanks a lot, sir. Before we move on to the question answer round, I have an important announcement. Yudhvir sir would be handling the question answer session, but during the same time, during the question answer session, a feedback link will also be on the screen. So, meantime, you have to also continue filling the feedback, because immediately after this question answer session, we will have the valedictory ceremony. So, I request you all to stay for the question answer as well as for the valedictory ceremony, which is very important. So, over to Yudhvi sir for the question answer session.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir, Amit sir. Shivam Singh sir, thank you very much for this splendid talk and very informative, as well as you give a practical knowledge on machine learning. Dear participants, I hope these sessions live up to your expectation, okay, and give you a great information to enhance your knowledge. Now we are ready to take your questions. If anyone have any questions, so then please raise your hand one by one. We will take your queries. Now, first question I'm taking from Sudhakar Mari. Yes, you can ask your question. Sudhakar. Sudhakar?
Yudhvi sir, you need to make them this microphone on, microphone permission.
Yes, sir, I allow microphone.
Okay.
Okay, next. Next, I am taking question from now I am allowing Ajay Kumar Jivaji.
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Sir, good evening, sir. Good evening, Shivamji. My question with regard to, as you stated earlier in your keynote address starting, regarding the cluster information, regarding the whenever some people they require information, that is quite clear. And one more thing that you were during the session, you were talking about exploratory analysis, where you were referring to like bivariate model and univariate model. So if that is the case, if I want to know, if I have entered the data, I found in the later part, I found that there is some variable which is of no use. It is a weak variable. So I need to change the variable and again I need to go for it. Please suggest on this particular query. And one more thing, and most of them, most of them are introducing this artificial intelligence in the startups, in the current startups, and they are not even sustaining for a longer period. In spite of they are using this technology, and their one important thing aspect is that they are unable to continue in the market for a longer period. So, what could be the reason? Can you please light on these two queries, and what was your take on this?
Okay. Your first question, so answer of your first question is like very easy. So if you found that your variables are not important and you found that these features are not putting any kind of impact or not help you for making any kind of prediction, so yes, you can drop those features. You can remove those features from before preparing the data set. And I give you one more thing. So suppose, for your prediction, for a predictive model, suppose you need a more training examples. Okay, and if you drop like some of the columns, so yes, in that way you are trying to lose some kind of a training examples also. So what you can do, so you can produce, or you can generate some more examples by yourself, like I suggest you at a time of data collection, for those features only. And you can drop those features which are not important. So suppose at a time of exploratory data analysis, maybe if I make this matrix, this heat map, and here I am able to find that some columns are really irrelevant and this is not giving me any kind of value or important. So I can definitely drop those important those features, and that is what we call as a feature selection. That is called a feature selection method. Okay, and then there are okay, so apart from this heat map, there are different techniques. There are more techniques to select the best features. Okay, so if you are able to check, okay, these features are not important and this feature is not giving me any kind of output, so yes, you can drop those features. You can remove those irrelevant features. That is completely fine. Okay. And the second thing which you asked me, that most of the artificial intelligence applications is not able to sustain for a longer period. So it may happen because of okay, so we are whenever if we need to build any kind of a model, so the very must and important thing is we need a lot and lot of data, and a lot and lot of informative data. Okay, so 85% of the a model, or 85% of a deep learning or any kind of a machine learning models are fail because of this data set. Okay, because maybe if we are not able to collect our actual data, or maybe informative data, and because of that 85% of the models are fail along with the time. So suppose if I took example of a COVID cases, or maybe if I trying to make a kind of a model, so so last year in 2020, people are not able to make a accurate prediction. Okay, so whether the graph is going going to increase, or whether the graph is going to decrease, and what are the preventive measures. So most of the people are only talk about on the basis of some assumption, on the basis of some kind of a hypothesis. Okay, but as we are able to collect more data, and we are able to have a more information, so along with that we are able to make somewhat correct prediction. So likewise in this particular data set itself, so 80% accuracy is not give you sustainability in a market for a longer period. Okay, so you need to have more accuracy. You need to have more accurate model. Okay, so and for making a more accurate model, you need to have a more data, and that data should be more informative. So this is my take on your question.
Thank you, sir. It's very crystal clear. Clear. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Our next participant, Asutosh Priyadar, sir. Please ask your question. Asutosh Priyadar, sir. Only ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good
Good
afternoon.
luck.
Hello.
Yes, yes, sir. Ask the question.
Yes, you're audible. Go ahead and ask your question.
Ashutosh?
Ask your question, please. I think, sir, if Ashutosh is not having any query, can we have any other student?
Yes, sir. The- Tutakar Mari?
Yes.
Ask your question. You raise your hand in the beginning. Tutakar. Yes, Ashutosh. Anyone want to ask any question, so please ask your queries, clear your doubts with our experts, especially on machine learning and pattern recognition. We welcome our participants to clear your doubts.
Sir, I feel no one has any query,
Yes, sir.
so then we can have a next round.
Yes, sir. I think we will over our question and answer round. No one interested to ask more question except Ajay Kumar Jivaji.
Ajay Kumarji, if you can ask question.
No, already asked.
Okay, fine.
Already
Fine,
asked.
fine.
Okay.
Okay. I have
So
one
now,
question, sir. Shivam,
yes.
sir. First of all, I really liked the session. It was really practical oriented and lots of code, which shows your expertise on the subject. I, as a researcher in machine learning, I am doing certain things. Uh, one is about cross validation. I have a question on k-fold cross validation. So, how exactly do we implement cross validation in Python? That is my question.
Okay. Yes, sir. I'm expecting for your question only. Okay, 1 second. So I need to take this paper to explain you the question. So to explain you the answer. So as we split our data in two parts, training and testing. So in most of the deep learning cases, or in a machine learning also, we are trying to split our data in three parts. Okay, so in a train, and then valid, and then test. Okay, so we are trying to split maybe data into three parts. And and what we are doing is, so in a so what is the concept of a cross validation? So we are trying to train our model on this particular data set. Okay, and then maybe a 70% data set, and then we are trying to validate our model on this data set. And then so suppose I have like some training examples, and along with that training examples, I suppose I run a decision tree classifier along with a maximum depth of maybe 3. Okay, and then maybe I get an accuracy of like 80%. Okay, so I try to cross validate my model with this hyperparameters, this maximum depth, and like these are the things are called as a hyperparameter. So then I try to like take maximum depth as 5, and then again I can check like my model performance. So suppose this time I get like maybe 81%. And in this way, I try to maybe cross validate my model for maybe 4 times or 5 times with a different like hyperparameter. Okay, so maybe I can take 10, and then I got maybe 82%. So on which a hyperparameter, on which like a parameter, if I get like a maximum accuracy, I try to like take that value as my best optimal value of my hyperparameter, and then along with that parameter only, means along with the maximum depth equals to 10, I try to like find accuracy on the test data set.
Yes,
Okay, so
I have been using Grid CV for this hyperparameter.
yeah,
and
hyperparameter tuning.
yeah, tuning. The question I
Yeah.
have is, I am not able to control the number of cross validation steps. Right now, it is, for example, 3. I want it to go to 10, for example.
So your question is you want to control the cross validation steps or this values?
The steps. Right now, I am moving with 3-step cross validation. I want to
So you are
increase it to 10-step cross validation.
so in a grid search CV or maybe in a randomized search CV, everywhere you have one like a parameter iter it for the number of iteration or the number of a cross validation step. So
Yeah,
if you
CV, yes,
assign
CV.
that step as like a 5 or a 3, so you can stop. Or yes, if you want to stop it earlier, like whenever at a time you get like a maximum value and you want to start a stop at that value, so you can use this technique, early stopping technique.
Early stopping. Yeah, I understood, sir. CV is the
Mhm.
parameter which is going to control it. However, I'll
Yeah.
try it again. I'll try it again today. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir, I can suggest you one thing. So you have like a great knowledge. So you can like suppose if your like a system is having a, maybe if you are having a GPU system and you are working on some research project, so you can use this TPOT model instead of grid search and randomized search CV.
Great, great, great.
So it will help you to find the, along with the best parameter, it will help you to find the best classifier as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. So this is a takeaway for me, sir. I'm absolutely thankful to you. I'll further research on this TPOT. So thank you, Shivam, sir.